the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Cowboys. Locked On Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for tuning in. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. And joining me today, as always, is my co-host, Landon McCool. You can check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. You can also listen to him on the Best Coast Boys podcast. Landon, what's going on, sir?
Not much. It's Wednesday. I am actually about to head home being California pretty soon. And, enjoyed my stay in Texas, but it's time to get back to get in California to get ready for training camp. And Marcus, I could not be more excited.
Yeah, just like the Cowboys, you're going out to California for training camp this year.
I'm hitching a ride with them, I think. We'll talk about the logistics later.
So today we're going to preview the Cowboys' offensive tackles heading into camp. And Landon, we are getting very, very close to when the Cowboys actually go out to Oxnard. It's going to be really close whether we can finish up our training camp preview or not. But we'll make sure we do it. Let's talk about the offensive tackles. Mm-hmm. Got to start with Tyron Smith, who seems like he's healthy now after an offseason neck surgery. He was at mini camps. He was at OTAs. The expectation is that he'll be ready to go for training camp. My biggest question to you is, can we ever expect a full, let's say, 16, 17 game season from Tyron Smith again?
I don't know. I think this is a good year to find that out, right? Like I think that previous to this year, that had always been a question, and I feel like for at least the last half decade, the answer was probably no. The answer was that we hadn't really seen a full game season from.
Well, not only a full game or a full season from him, but you were getting 10 games that were really good and 3 that he was pretty beat up in.
Yeah. And it looks like, and it sounds like, and again, it's sometimes hard to parse off-season talk with, the reality. It sounds like from what he's telling us and from what other people are telling us is that this neck surgery that he had was something that he's been trying to do for a long time, that he's needed to do for a long time. And, there is – we constantly talk about the negative reinforcement of what happens when you have, kind of back, neck, lower chain injuries and how that perpetuates problems. So I think it's reasonable for us to, put some faith behind the fact that positive changes there could create positive results in that same situation. That neck surgery that he's had, that he's needed for a long time, that it actually could relieve some issues that he's had with his back and relieve some of those issues with the stingers. And, because that's really been the issue, is that he gets a stinger, he tries to play through it, and then it usually develops into something worse in his back. Yep. So maybe there's a chance that this actually alleviates a lot of that and he's able to play a full game season. It sounds like he's gotten a lot more flexible, which is something that I felt like he's needed to do. So it's possible. I think that this is the year that it's more possible than I felt that he could do it than in previous years. It's always felt like we're just trying to manage to get him through the season. Right?
Now, knock on wood, but I do feel like this is the best offensive tackle depth the Cowboys have had in a while, right? That if Tyron does need to miss, let's say, a 2 or 3 game stretch, I think they're more well suited to cover for him now than they have been in the past. Even last year, right? Like, they just didn't have the guys. Cam Irving wasn't healthy. Brandon Knight was really never healthy for most of the season. I think they're better equipped to handle a Tyron injury. However, if they can get 16, 17 games out of Tyron Smith, honestly, I'm not just saying this because I think he's a fantastic tackle. He's so important. If he plays 17 games, I don't see how this Cowboy team doesn't make the playoffs. He's that important to this team.
Yeah, he is. He has a huge effect when he's playing correctly. And I think that his presence is more than just a stabilizing a presence. It's a dominant change when he's there and when he's not. I think
he can take away the best pass rusher in a team.
And beyond that too. As a run blocker as well. He's just head and shoulders above everybody else as well. So, he's a force multiplier to say the least. I mean, what he allows you to do by allowing him to be put on an island in kind of pass schemes and pass protections is that, when you have guys like La'el Collins and Tyron Smith that you can trust, you can put more people out en route. And that provides more opportunities for Dak, more targets for Dak to look at while he's in the pocket. So those are all very good things. And that's kind of an underrated aspect of problems that happened last year was, once Terrence Steele and Brandon Knight were in, we all knew what Terrence Steele and Brandon Knight were. They needed a lot of help. Most NFL tackles need a lot of help. So certainly these guys did. And that help comes at the expense of wide receivers en route.
Yes or no? Tyron Smith makes the Pro Bowl in 2021.
I think it's possible. Yes, I think if he plays to his standard. His name. Pro Bowl is a lot more about name recognition than more than anything else.
If he
Everyone
plays
knows
14 games, he's going to be in the Pro Bowl. I'm just telling you.
I think it's very likely, and I think he'll. If he plays 14 games, he probably will have earned it. He's still a really young and talented guy, and especially if he's not having to drag his shoulder around anymore. He's got full strength in his left arm, which apparently he didn't have while playing like an all-pro for the last few years. It could make a very marked change on this team, and obviously that could result in a Pro Bowl.
Tyron Smith, only 30 years old. You would think he would be a much older player than that, but only 30. Yeah, I think we could still see a fantastic season from Tyron Smith. I'm really, really curious to see what he looks like. Basically, after not playing most of last year, he got injured. It was after week 2. I'm looking for a big season from Tyron Smith. I think the other tackle on this team is actually more interesting, Landon. Another tackle that did not play a single snap last year, and that's La'el Collins. I want to take a quick break before we talk about La'el Collins so I can tell you guys about BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Baseball season is in full swing, and you can track all the action on BetOnline. Get all the latest news, odds, and info on all your sporting needs, including MLB, NBA, NHL, and UFC. Before the next pitch, head over to BetOnline on your laptop or mobile device and check out all the great sporting news, sign-up bonuses, and contest information. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore, as this is your chance to get into the game as teams prep for the runs of the playoffs. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. All right, Landon. So La'el Collins has had a really interesting career so far. He started off as a left guard, right, and couldn't stay healthy at guard. Moves to tackle. In his first year at tackle, it was a bit of a struggle. But in 2019, I can remember talking about it on this podcast, Landon. Like, we were just amazed at how good La'el was playing that season. We thought he was absolutely a Pro Bowl snub. And we were talking about him being maybe the second best offensive lineman on the team that season behind Zach Martin, right? Well, then he has the double hip surgery, was ruled out pretty quickly for the entire season, never saw him play a snap. What are the expectations for La'el entering 2021?
Well, unfortunately for La'el is, the expectations are high, and they need to be high because we need him to, last year was a terrible year for La'el as it was for anybody. I think that he clearly struggled with his rehab. He clearly struggled with, the changes in the offseason that were required because of COVID protocols. And he didn't keep up the way that he probably needed to, as far as keeping his weight down, keeping his regiment going. And who could blame him? Honestly, I know that I think it's really football players often are creatures of habit. And when their habit is broken or things look different, a lot of times they struggle. And, La'el Collins LC is a guy who probably was, used to going into the facility every single day, working out, seeing Dak, having lunch, has a routine. Suddenly that gets broken. Suddenly there's a lot of uncertainty. Other people deal with that. People deal with that on a spectrum, right? They deal with how they deal with that chaos. And I think that La'el just unfortunately didn't take it very well. Now, coming back into this season, clearly there's high levels of expectation because we know what LC can do. I think was it today that we saw
Ryan Ramczyk.
You know, Ryan Ramczyk get a $96 million deal, basically $20 million a year.
They're not that different players when they're on the field. They really are.
That's the thing is that, you know, the Cowboys currently have both La'el Collins and Tyron Smith under contract for less money than Ryan Ramczyk is making per year. And that's
insane.
I'm bringing that up because, you know, that's not always going to be the case. And the Cowboys need to find a way to maximize that, you know, the benefits that they've got. Yeah. So I think that, you know, for La'el, you know, we lost a season. We basically, last year was a wash season for us. We need him to come back and play like the player he was developing into 2019. It sounds like he's motivated. It sounds like he's, you know, excited. You know, he's really tight friends with Dak Prescott, and I know Dak's in there pushing him really hard. So I have big expectations for La'el. And that's, you know, that's not great necessarily because of, you know, all the kind of uncertainty that we just talked about. But I do believe, just knowing who LC is and knowing that getting back into the kind of routine of things and getting back into kind of refocused on reshaping his body and getting healthy again, you know, I think that he's in a better spot now than he was, even, you know, obviously after he got injured, but even before he got injured, he's in a better spot than he was last year, just because he's a year away from the surgery. He's had some time to rehab. He's coming into the season in a much better spot than he would have, even if things had gone normally last year.
Yeah. So just really quickly, last season, because he was at training camp at the very beginning, if you do remember. But I think he was one of these guys because he had it was either he had the surgery in the offseason or he was dealing with his hip surgery or hip issue where he couldn't work out. So he came in training camp heavy. It just kind of naturally, right? Because he couldn't work out. Like I don't think people understood that enough. I heard whispers that it was, you know, he was in the 350s or 360s. It doesn't matter if they were right or not. I saw what he's weighing in at now. Like, what did he say? 313, and he's hoping to be down in the 308 range. I actually saw him post a picture on Instagram the other day of him working out with a shirt on, and you can tell he's not in the 320s or 330s. Like this. I almost posted it on Twitter, but I didn't want to. Yeah, I didn't want all that. You guys know what I'm talking about. Yeah. He's in great shape. I think he's going to have a monster year, and they need him to. And we know how talented he is. I really thought before the end of the 2019 season, it was the best I've ever seen him play, and he was becoming, I think, a Pro Bowl player, if not better than that, like an All-Pro level right tackle. If the Cowboys can get that player back this season on top of all the other weapons they have on offense, I think they're going to be just fine. Yeah,
he's, you know, look, like I said, this wasn't a lazy thing. This was a dealing with 2 hip surgeries and not exactly understanding how to properly rehab the hip while also keeping the weight off while not getting the full-time guidance that he normally would get because of COVID. Because of COVID. Yeah. So it's just an unfortunate situation, and I'm excited to see him bounce back from it.
All right, so the Cowboys did cover themselves a little bit this offseason, bringing in veteran offensive tackle Ty Nsekhe, who played for Washington for years, was in Buffalo. Now, he is older. I believe he's 38 or 39 years old. I don't think he's somebody at this stage in his career that you want to start, but I think he is somebody who can get you through a game, and he can start 1 or 2 games if you need him to. What are your expectations for Nsekhe this year?
I think you said it. I think, you know, it's the idea that he could come in, and if you needed him to, you know, start for 1 or 2 games, if you needed him to finish a game, come into a game and finish a game because someone got injured, I think he's your guy. I think he's a guy who's got a ton of experience. He's seen it all. So the idea of kind of setting, stepping in and immediately kind of taking a role, that's something that's not unfamiliar to him. He's done that in several different spots around the league. So I think that's something that's beneficial to have. You know, I think that if there was a long-term injury at the position, I don't know that he's necessarily the guy that they would be getting ready for a 7-game stretch.
Well, can I give you an example? Like, let's say La'el goes down in week 1. Mm-hmm. They probably use Ty Nsekhe to play the rest of that game, right? Probably, and then probably Terrence Steele would be the starting right tackle for the rest of the season, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it's those kind of conversations that will be being had as to where's the line for Ty and the line for Terrence Steele, Josh Ball. Who knows who the next guy is in line? We'll talk about that in a second, I'm sure. I think that you're right. The idea is that they have covered themselves at tackle in layers, right? In not just like a full-time, swing tackle guy who, okay, this is our solution. Because I think that's what happened last year, is that they felt like they had a good solution. And to their credit, I thought Cam Erving played better than I even expected him.
Yeah,
to play
I think he was
when
an
he was on the
above-average
field.
swing tackle.
Absolutely, and I was not expecting that. Right.
Well, what's crazy is Cam played only a couple games, but he played well, and he was able to parlay those couple of games that he played well and do a big contract where now he's the starting offensive tackle for the Panthers.
And that shows you, man. And that shows you like just the demand for tackles in the league, right? Like if you're a decent swing tackle,
if you're competent, you're going to get paid.
If you're competent, you got a starter signing deal. So I think that the Cowboys learned a little bit from their lesson last year. They had Cam Erving, but guess what? You lost 3 tackles. And so what do you do now? So I think what they've got now is they've got their 3 tackles. They got their 2 starters in the swing. They've got a 4th guy that got experience last year, maybe not good experience, but he got some experience last year at Terrence Steele, and you hope that maybe he can come back a little bit better and learn a little bit more, a little bit stronger, and potentially give you somehow give you some snaps there if you needed it. Or if you can get Josh Ball up to speed faster, then maybe he's a guy that can kind of take that role. But the point is that they have better solutions than they did last year, and not just kind of resting there. I mean, look, you couldn't. It would have been almost impossible to try to prepare for what happened to the Cowboys' offensive line last year.
Well, not only the 3 guys at the
fleek.
top, right, but you also had Brandon Knight played injured a lot that season, right? Terrence Steele actually missing time, and that's why they had to slide out Zach Martin. On top of that, your center got hurt, right?
Yep.
So then Zach Martin, it was a disaster on the offensive line. But there was no team in the league that could be able to overcome that. And the Cowboys didn't either, but I do think they're better for it now heading into the 2021 season because they just have more depth of guys that have played a bunch.
Let's be clear. If the same sort of thing happens this year as it did last year, I mean, the Cowboys are probably better suited than they were, but it's still not going to be pretty if that happens. I don't think you can prepare for that kind of thing, right? There's no solution for that that's good.
Well,
like you can't have 2 starting offensive lines on your team, basically, that you can just rotate in like hockey lines.
I think Andy Reid is the best offensive coach in the football. I think he's a fantastic play designer, and they have the best quarterback in football, right? They lost 2 tackles, not 3, 2 tackles, and they couldn't even score a touchdown in the Super Bowl, right? Like the offense completely fell apart with 2 offensive line injuries. The Cowboys were dealing with several all season long to guys that are frankly better than what Kansas City had.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that shows you just kind of how the importance of the position. So, those guys are obviously going to have a big role. And that's why you pay Ty Nsekhe big money, even if he's only going to come in and, play a couple snaps here and there, or maybe a whole game. It's worth it.
I agree. Let's take one more quick break so I can tell you guys about Built Bar, the absolute best tasting protein bar out there. It's hard to even explain it. It's real chocolate with amazing flavors. It's just a great combination of low calories, high protein, and low sugar with no crazy additives. Best of all, they taste absolutely fantastic. Go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCKEDON and you'll get $10 off your next box at BuiltBar.com. I also want to tell you guys about Rock Auto. RockAuto.com is a family business serving auto parts to customers online for over 20 years. They have everything from engine control modules and brake parts, motor oil, and even new carpet. Whether it's for your classic or your daily driver, get everything you need in a few easy clicks delivered directly to your door. The RockAuto.com catalog is unique and remarkably easy to navigate. Quickly see all the parts available for your vehicle and choose the brand specifications and prices that you prefer. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Write Locked On in the How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com today. All right, Landon, let's talk about Terrence Steele because I actually watched just about every snap from Terrence Steele last night preparing for the show.
Masochist.
Yeah. He was awful in the first half of the season. There's no way to say it. In the Atlanta game, he was atrocious. He had 3 penalties. He gave up multiple sacks. He was not good. But by the end of the season, especially closer to like weeks 15, 16, and 17, I think he was passable as a right tackle. Now, the pass blocking is still a little bit of an issue. I thought he improved drastically as a run blocker as the season went along. It did have me a little bit more encouraged. Then on top of everything, we're hearing that he's worked just about every single day this offseason with Duke Manyweather. He's only 24 years old. I'm not saying that he's going to be a starting right tackle in the NFL, but I do think there's a chance that he could be a serviceable / passable swing tackle if you need him. What are your thoughts on Terrence Steele entering year 2?
Look, I mean, he certainly had an awful year last year. I mean, and frankly, I mean, you want to talk about not fair, fair or whatever.
No,
what happened to him was absolutely unfair. And for his development, for his future, it was the worst possible thing that could happen to him because now he's exposed. I'm sure offensive tackles are like anybody else. They deal with confidence. They deal with their, their ability and how to use it. The fact that he was able to get through last year and then continues fighting the whole time, that's impressive. It wasn't great. The results were not great on the field. I think we can all say that. And I think that, the improvements in the run game specifically, I think are absolutely valid. And I think that that's not surprising. I mean, the guy didn't do a bunch of run blocking in college. And actually that's my concern here with him is that he had well over, I think, 1,000 pass snaps in college. He started 4 years, if I'm not mistaken, at Texas Tech. Look, like I said, run blocking, they didn't do a ton of it, so he's still learning that. He's been doing a lot of pass blocking for a long time. My concern is, how much tweaking can be done. It's not like he hasn't seen a lot.
I would say a lot, though, because remember, he's going against Big 12 pass rushers, which is basically the equivalent to you and I going out there.
Let me rephrase. Lots of tweaking needs to be done.
Yes.
How much tweaking can be done, I guess, is my concern. Because there is a learned, there's a portion where you actually learn the bad thing by doing it over and over again and hoping you can improve by changing it here and there. So my concern is that this isn't just like a ball of clay. This guy has been formed before and it's not pretty. So it's more kind of having to relearn a lot of past stuff, which I think is actually more difficult than like, Isaac Akron, a guy that doesn't have a ton of experience. Right? Apologies if I mispronounced.
No, that's all right.
Yeah.
So I just want to recap Terrence Steele's offseason because I don't think people understand how brutal of a situation he was, right? He is this undrafted rookie free agent that has no minicamp, no rookie minicamp to even get on the field and show anything. He goes to training camp, and I can't imagine that he got a lot of snaps with Tyron and Lyle there and Cam Irving taking snaps and Brandon Knight. Like, I think most of us were shocked when he made the 53-man roster, right? Like when he made the roster, we were surprised because he had no preseason. We never got to see him. And then all of a sudden he's starting week 1 against the Rams on Sunday Night Football. Like that's a crazy offseason for any undrafted rookie free agent. So it's not surprising that he struggled. I do think it's interesting that the coaching staff stuck with him so long, right? Like they could have moved Cam Irving over there. They could have done a bunch of different things, but there must be something that Mike McCarthy and Joe Philbin liked about him to keep putting him out there at right tackle. Again, I'm not saying that he's going to be a starting right tackle. I wonder what it is that the coaching staff likes so much about him, because I think maybe there is a chance that he could be a swing tackle in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, he has traits without a doubt. Like, I mean, he's got long arms, he's got quick feet. Like, there's certainly a lot to like about his athletic profile, and I think he has upside there. I mean, I just think it's not always as easy when you have bad learned behavior.
Yes,
right?
I agree. I agree.
So I'm certainly not ruling him out, and I think that he has a very look. What happened last year to him was terrible. But now that he's on the other side of it, I'm very interested to see how he takes that experience and moves forward.
I wouldn't be surprised at all if he's one of these players at camp that just looks dramatically better than we saw at any point last year.
Absolutely.
Right? Like
I wouldn't either.
Now that he's had a full offseason, he's been working with Duke Manyweather. He's reportedly getting stronger. He's focusing on the right tackle position only. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if we go to camp and it's like, hey, Terrence Steele doesn't look half bad. Like, if they have to play him, okay, we feel much better about it. The other guy I want to touch on really quickly is Josh Ball. We've actually talked about him quite a bit after the Cowboys selected him. Was it the 4th round, I believe, late 4th round of the 2021 NFL draft? We're not going to talk about the character issues. We're going to talk about only the player that we see on the field. How quickly do we think Josh Ball is going to become the Cowboys swing tackle?
I mean, I think pretty quickly. I mean, I definitely like what his talent is. He has skills, and like I said, we aren't going to get into the off-field stuff, but the off-field stuff is the reason that he went so low. I mean, it's not because of his talent. I mean, if he was able to stay at Florida State and didn't have all these off-field issues or whatever you want to call it, I don't have doubts that he would probably have been a
second
day
round pick?
2 pick. Yeah.
Early 3rd round pick. I agree. He's probably one of the players I'm most interested to see at camp because I want to see how he matches up with like a Randy Gregory, right? Because he's very athletic. He's also very big. Does he look overwhelmed? Is he a natural? Somebody who looked pretty good at Florida State when we saw him. So
he needs some work. He's still kind of a waist bender. He's still, I mean, even though he's got incredibly long arms, it feels like he needs a little bit more patience. So I do think this is a good spot for him because if he doesn't have to play right away and he can get kind of a year of instruction, it'll go a long way for him.
Do we think the Cowboys keep 5 offensive tackles this year?
After last year, maybe.
It's going to be interesting because Brandon Knight, it sounds like he's moving into guard, and maybe that helps, right? Maybe you only keep 4 and you keep Brandon Knight as the 5th. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't really want to give up on any of these guys, especially not Josh Ball, who's your draft pick, Ty Nishke, who's a veteran.
Could Connor McGovern end up being a guy that could be a surprise cut?
Who, Nishke?
No, McGovern. I mean, we're talking about tackles, but I'm saying like maybe in order to get the numbers to work correctly, because Knight plays both guard and tackle.
Maybe. I also think, as you were saying, that I think Nishke could be, and this is what I would say. They could cut him before week 1 when they probably don't need him, right? Yeah. And then just re-sign him after week 1 and then use him on a week-by-week basis. His contract wasn't big to begin with anyways. It was just over the veteran minimum. That wouldn't surprise me at all either because I think it's easier to keep a Ty Nishke from being claimed rather than a Terrence Steele who's 24 years old.
Young tackles, I'm not trying to risk on the waiver wire, if that's what you're.
Overall, I think this is one of the deepest offensive tackle units the Cowboys have had in the last decade or so. And I'm really interested to see how those 2 young tackles perform at training camp. That is it for today's show. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, you can download and subscribe to the show, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you follow Landon at McCool BCB. You can follow the show at Locked On Cowboys. And I'm at Marcus _Mosher. And we will